Hey guys, how are you? I am so excited to be here with you guys today. You have no idea. I literally almost died this week, and that's not even an exaggeration. I say literally a lot, and a lot of times I don't mean it, but this time I actually do. And everything just kind of changed. So this video was supposed to be about my first week at my new job, which we'll talk about a tiny bit, but definitely not the focus because something so much more important came up. And it's kind of the namesake of this video. So this video is called Blood Clots, Deep Vein Thrombosis, and Pulmonary Embolisms, oh my. Kind of like lions and tigers and bears, oh my, but a lot more common, I think, and in my case, a lot more scary anyway. So I was reading a statistic on unitedhealthcare.com, which is my old insurance company, so I feel like it's pretty reputable, that says 6 people a minute die from blood clots. That is insane. And then there was a statistic that I saw on the Today Show, some reporter, I think in like 2013 maybe, he was in Afghanistan covering the war and he died from a blood clot. And at that point it said 74% of people were unaware of blood clots, and they had raised awareness by like 20%. So it's really, really common and really not very well known about at all. So what are blood clots? Blood clots are a natural part of mammals' existence. So if you have blood, so people are animals, then blood clotting is a healing mechanism. So if you get a cut and you start bleeding, your blood clots and you stop bleeding. So it's a safety factor, and it's an amazing thing that our body does to help us survive. But sometimes blood clots form that aren't for stopping bleeding, and sometimes those can become problematic. So traditionally speaking, your body actually naturally breaks down blood clots, but sometimes it doesn't, and they can get out of hand and out of control, and that's the case that happened with me. So the 2 types of blood clots that I'm aware of, there might be more, I'm just speaking from my experience, is deep vein thrombosis, which is referred to as DVTs, and those refer to blood clots in your legs or in your arms. And I had some in my legs. And the other type is pulmonary embolisms, which are blood clots that occur in your lungs, which I also had. So if we, go into my story a little bit, I went to California for my work trip for my first week of work. And the day before that, I did my long run. I started running back in April or so. I definitely, could still lose a little bit of weight, but I'm pretty happy with where I'm at. And I consider myself in pretty good shape. I've been running for, like 8 months or so. So even though I still have some work to do physically, I feel like I'm in really good shape. Anyway, so I did my long run on a Saturday, and then on Sunday I flew to California. And I don't remember if it was Sunday evening or on Monday that I started noticing some pains. So I had a really intense, tiny little pain in my calf, which was really unusual. It was really pretty small and really intense. And I consulted Dr. Google about it, and Dr. Google mentioned the pain, which I did have, and it also mentioned swelling, which I didn't have. It mentioned fever or temperature, warm to the touch, which I didn't have, and it mentioned discoloration, so red or blue, which I also didn't have. And as a runner, you get aches and pains and you just kind of push through it, and you don't think so much about them. That maybe you should, but this one was really intense. It was in a really small spot. It didn't take up my whole muscle. It was just, a section of my muscle. It was very tender. I couldn't massage it out. I couldn't roll it out. But I only had one of the 4 symptoms, so I just kind of blew it off. Around the same time, I started getting a pain in my ribs. And I know that I started getting the pain on my ribs on Sunday because I just kind of chalked it up to I had new jeans, they were kind of tight, I sat on a plane for a while, and it's probably gas. So by the time Monday came around and I still had the pain in my stomach, I'm like, this is a really long time for gas to happen. I must have pulled a muscle. I had my luggage, I've been traveling. I'm sure that's what it is. And kind of went about my week, didn't really think a whole lot of it. The pain in my leg was pretty intense, but it was tolerable. Like I could walk normal and I, wasn't wincing and everything was kind of fine. The pain in my rib was dull, but it kind of like grew as time went on. The one in my leg kind of came and went. It was always there. It never truly went away, but it kind of, sometimes was more painful and sometimes was less painful. So I just kind of, chalked it up to muscle pain. About Thursday, I started to get out of breath doing very minimal things like walking down a hallway to go to the bathroom or climbing up a flight of stairs. And like I said, I've been running since April, about like 8 months. So I've been running for quite a while now and I'm up to pretty good distance. And I shouldn't, in my case, at least I don't believe, I shouldn't be this out of breath based on my experience for doing these little things. By the time Friday came around, I flew home and I was so out of breath. It's not even funny how out of breath I was. The pain in my leg had actually gone away at this point. It went away, I think it was Thursday that the pain in my leg went away. But when I got to my home airport Friday, I couldn't even make it from my gate to baggage claim. So I was probably in about the middle of the terminal and I made it that far, half the terminal to where security is. Security has benches, so you can put all your clothes back on after you go through security. And I stopped there and just huffed and puffed for like 15 minutes. For 15 minutes, I was just, breathing so hard. Like I just ran 5 miles as fast as I possibly could. Like I sprinted. But like could not catch my breath. During this time, I, was Googling again, and so I became a vegetarian a while ago, kind of by accident. I just realized one day that I hadn't had meat for a while. We went out to eat with some friends, and I ordered a butternut squash ravioli, which, oh my God, was so good. It was so good. But when I ordered it, I realized I haven't had meat for a while, maybe 2 weeks or so. Maybe I should try this vegetarian thing. But I was in California, so I had some fish, so maybe vegetarian with a little bit of pescatarian. I don't know, but mostly vegetarian. And so anyway, so I looked up vegetarianism and shortness of breath. And lo and behold, something came up. So a lot of times, new vegetarians, I'm sure that experienced vegetarians that probably have it figured out, and I'm sure a lot of people have it figured out in general, but new vegetarians, at least in my case, probably don't know how to balance our vitamins and our nutrients to make sure that we are at the optimal range that we're supposed to be at for everything. So with that occurs anemia, and anemia can cause shortness of breath. But it said that the fixes for that is B12 and iron. So I got home, I had some B12 vitamins, so I took 2, even though I'm only supposed to take 1, because I'm like, I gotta get rid of this. And I didn't have any iron, so I took some multivitamins that I had that contain iron. And wasn't really feeling very well, just kind of hung out with my daughter, watched some movies, and we went to bed. So Saturday comes around, I'm still ridiculously out of breath, ran up the stairs, ran down the stairs again, I sprinted as far as I possibly could and, just couldn't catch my breath and was just panting so hard. Anyway, so I had a prescription to pick up from the pharmacy for birth control. And so far I talked about two of the main causes for blood clots, which I haven't mentioned yet, but blood clots are pretty common with traveling. So flying for periods of time without getting up and moving. Anytime that you're sedentary, you're at risk for creating a blood clot. Estrogen-based birth controls, which I have been on for forever. I'm not anymore. I stopped when I was at the hospital, and I'm not going to take it again. Also are very high risk for blood clots. Some other causes include the ones that I thought of, such as, you know, being obese, being elderly. I was really embarrassed when I found out that I had blood clots because that's what I associated it with. I didn't associate it with flying. I didn't associate it with birth control. I didn't associate it with running. I didn't associate it with just being an athlete in general has a probability of getting blood clots. My doctor explained to me that when you're physically active, your veins constrict, and if they constrict, they kind of hold the blood, and the blood platelets can grow together and a clot forms. If you have surgery, if you got injured, if you got a bruise, if you scraped your knee, like so many reasons you can get them. And I was completely unaware. And according to the statistic from the Today Show, a lot of other people are too. That statistic is pretty old. March is Blood Clot Awareness Month, so hopefully the knowledge about it is growing, but it hadn't reached me. So anyway, so I went to the pharmacy to pick up my birth control, and I also got some iron pills because I just needed to get rid of it, and you know, I needed to get this anemia under control, and I got some Prilosec and some Gas-X because I still had the pain in my rib and I just needed to get rid of this gas already. It's been lingering for like a week now. Ridiculous. We went out to eat for some dinner with some friends, and my daughter spent the night at a friend's house, and I took all those vitamins and gas pills and everything. I woke up Sunday morning and just knew that something was wrong. So I knew I didn't have gas. I was like the least bloated I've ever been. And the pain that was like kind of emanating around the area that made me think it was maybe a pulled muscle had subsided. It was like a little dot of pain again, like what I was having in my leg a few days prior. And like this is when I was like, okay, there's a problem. So, but I didn't know what it was. I thought that I had pleurisy. I called my mom. I'm like, I think I have pleurisy. I had it back in 2012 and it felt exactly the same. So in my case, the pulmonary embolism it was right underneath of my right rib. And if you could like cup your fingers underneath your ribs, then it was like right there in the front. It hurt when I breathed in, and it hurt when I lay down flat on my back, but that was it. Like I could jump, I could exhale, I could, you know, lay on my side, I could do all kinds of things, and it didn't bother it. So it was really just the, you know, laying flat on my back and inhaling, which is exactly like the pleurisy was. So like I said, I called my mom. It's like, I think I have pleurisy. You know, I was about to go on another work trip. I was supposed to be traveling 2 weeks in a row. And I was like, you know, I just can't let this get as bad as I let it get back in 2012. In 2012, I let my pleurisy go way too long and get really, really bad. I wasn't able to stand up straight. I was all kinds of hunched over. I was in the hospital for a week, really just to get the pain under control. I had the antibiotics at that point, but I was in so much pain. I was, you know, like in the hospital, they've got those like tables that roll over the bed. I put a pillow on it and I slept on that for like a week because I just couldn't even sit up, let alone like lay back. And I was just like, well, I need to go get this pleurisy taken care of before I go on this work trip, because I would hate to end up in the hospital for a week while I'm on a work trip. It was early enough in the morning. I looked up the wait times, 14 minutes, perfect. Called my daughter, was like, hey, I'm coming to get you. You know, told some friends, told some people. We have a great support system here, and was like, hey, you know, my daughter is at home. I'm going to the hospital. I should get out, you know, but if for whatever reason I end up staying, can you help me out? And everybody's like, yeah, sure, no problem. So my plan was to go to the hospital, go to the emergency room. I managed to pack it into this day before I'm supposed to travel on the next day. I still need to pack. I still need to go to the grocery store. I need to do the meal prep for the week so that there's food to eat. And, you know, I fit going into the emergency room into this master plan that I had for my Sunday. And so I went to the emergency room, and they almost thought I was a nutcase. Like I was telling everybody, from the intake person to the nurse to the doctor, I have pleurisy. I've had this before. I had it back in 2012. With pleurisy, you're supposed to have bronchitis or pneumonia that gets out of control and it spreads to the outer lining of your lung, which didn't happen to me back in 2012. So they tested me for all of these different autoimmune disorders, because it's just, you're not supposed to just get pleurisy for no reason, and I did. But yeah, so the doctor was like, okay, we're gonna do an x-ray, and I'm like, okay, that's fine if you wanna do an x-ray, but last time I didn't have bronchitis or pneumonia, so nothing is gonna show up on the x-ray. We really need to do a CAT scan. And he was like, okay, well, we're gonna do the x-ray. They come back, they tell me, you know, the x-ray was inconclusive. Yeah, I know, I've done this before. We're gonna do a CAT scan. Good, because that's how they caught it last time. So we do the CAT scan, the doctor comes back in the room, and he's like, we found something. And I'm like, yep, I know. So if I could just get those antibiotics, I gotta get out of here. I've got a lot of things to do. I've got a flight to catch tomorrow, and you know, I'm on a strict timeline. He proceeds to tell me that I am not getting antibiotics, I'm not getting on a plane, and in fact, I'm going to the ICU, and I'm gonna be here for a few days because I have bilateral pulmonary embolisms, which mean that I have a blood clot in each of my lungs. What? Like, I am supposed to have pleurisy. I'm supposed to get on with my plan for the day. Like, this does not fit into my plan. This is my second week of work at a brand new company. It's like my dream company, and what a mess. My company has been fabulous, by the way. They've been so amazing through this whole thing so far. And so then they order a Doppler radar, which is a ultrasound on your legs, and they found 2 more blood clots, 1 in each leg. So that one that I had in my calf that I felt, that I stopped feeling, I don't know if it went away. I don't know if it was traveling up because it was, you know, my upper thigh area. But either way, I had 4 blood clots, and just so crazy. So then they take me up to the ICU, and they immediately put me on blood thinner medicine, and they did a EKG and an echocardiogram. And an echocardiogram is essentially an ultrasound of your heart. And what they found from that is that the right side of my heart was working way too hard. I don't remember what order the numbers go in or what the numbers actually mean, but he threw out 500 and 1500. So basically what I took away from that, which, you know, I don't know if it's what he meant, is that my heart was working 3 times as hard as it should be working. So I am so lucky. Not only did I have blood clots in my lungs, which could have got to my heart and killed me instantly, but my heart was working so hard. When I was at the airport and couldn't catch my breath, when I was doing the stairs and couldn't catch my breath, when I walked from my car into the emergency room and I couldn't catch my breath, like, I'm so lucky that I didn't die in any of those moments. Because literally my heart could have just exploded. And that's so terrifying. Like, you know, I mentioned we have a great support system, but like, that's not the plan at all. And so, you know, they decided that the next morning they were going to do something on me called ECOS, which is to break up the blood clots in my lungs. So there's another medicine that's used for blood clots I don't know what the actual term for it is, but it's essentially blood clot breaker medicine. And some doctors prescribe it. My doctor didn't really feel like prescribing it. However, like, he doesn't really prescribe it because he explained to me it doesn't know which blood clots to target. It just finds a blood clot and targets it. So parts of your internal or external, you know, you could start bleeding internally, or if you had a scab, you could just start bleeding because the blood clot breaker doesn't know what to target. So with the ECOS, they put an IV right in your pelvic area, and they feed it up to your lungs. They've got 2 prongs, and they point it directly at the blood clots, and they shoot the blood clot breaker medicine directly at the blood clots so that it just has to target it. Also in there is like little vibrators to help break everything up. And that caused me to cough like crazy. So we got this done early in the morning, and it was about 10 o'clock. I was coughing like crazy the whole time, having crazy fits. You can't move the leg, which the ECOS is in. In my case, it was the right leg. I don't know if it's always the right leg, but in my case it was. So I couldn't move my right leg at all because you just don't want to disrupt the site where it's going in. And I had a huge coughing fit, and I felt instantly like I knocked it out. And it was like, oh my God. And I called the nurse, and I could feel my stomach like bulging up, swelling up. And I'm like, I think I knocked it loose. I was coughing like crazy. I did my best to not move my leg. I've done everything right. I've done everything I can. And she's like, yeah, I can see it leaking out, and I can see it kind of filling up. And so she called the doctor. The doctor rushed in. He got there about 40 minutes later. So it's about 11 p.m. at this point. While we were waiting for him, we put pressure on my stomach. So she got a sandbag, and we put that on. And at first it hurt so bad. But after, I kind of relaxed a little bit, it actually offered a lot of relief. But by the time the doctor got there, I was, just in so much pain. Like, moving the sandbag hurt so much. Anybody kind of like pressing around the area, I was like going to like push them away, but then you know better. So you're like, but you don't actually do anything. I remember he asked me, he's like, do you have a high pain tolerance? I'm like, I think so, but not right now. And he explained to me, he's like, we want this to run for 24 hours. We've ran for about 12 so far. So we have about 12 hours of the effect that we're looking for. If we stop it right now, we're going to lose 12 hours of what we're looking for. So we're not going to lose what we've already done, but we're not going to get the full effect. Can you handle it? And I was just so terrified that I was gonna die that I said yes, despite how much pain I was in. It was so bad. He prescribed crazy pain medicine. It made me sick, like literally sick, which made me all upset again. Like, oh my God, I pulled it out again. Some sleeping medicine, which didn't work. Like, I didn't sleep at all that night. Lasix to get the fluid off. I don't remember what all he did, but he was just like, da, 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 this, that, the next thing. So suffered through the night, made it, but I was the first patient that he came to see. And so 7 a.m. he came in and took the ECOS out, and, touching around it and doing the whole, like, I want to push you away, but I know better sort of thing. And he took the ECOS out, and I don't know how he actually did it, but it felt like, I couldn't actually feel it, but I don't know, it kind of looked like he just like pulled it out. I don't know if that's how it happened or not, but it's the way it seemed to me. And within half an hour, I was so much better. The coughing stopped. The coughing was so insane. Like, it was just shaking stuff up, and it's tickling your lungs, and it's tickling your heart, and it just makes you cough a bunch. Like, sometimes I felt like I was drowning. Like, oh my God, if I can't cough through this, I'm gonna drown. But I always did. I never drown, clearly. but it was really pretty awful. Not everybody gets EKOS, by the way. Like, I just got it because my heart was working so hard because of the pulmonary embolisms, and they had to get that under control. So I was released from the ICU on Tuesday. That's the day that the EKOS stopped. But there was no rooms. So I needed to go to another floor where they could monitor my heart function. But there was no rooms there. And from what I hear, there was really like no rooms in the hospital. And then somebody else was telling me that like one of the people that came into my rooms was saying that their mom works at another hospital, and I guess that one's all full too. So I don't know if it's because it's flu season or what, but apparently the hospitals were all full. Anyway, so I ended up staying in the ICU the entire time. I got released from the ICU on Thursday, even though I was technically released on Tuesday. I just never got moved to another room. And yeah, here I am. So what does this mean for me now? Well, while I was in the hospital, they took some of my blood and they sent it off to look to see if I have a blood clotting disorder. I don't have the results of that yet, so I don't know, if I do or not. But I definitely had some of the risk factors, right? Being an athlete is a risk factor. Flying or just being sedentary is a risk factor. Taking estrogen-based birth control is a risk factor. So, I may or may not have the blood clotting disorder. I don't know yet, but I definitely had a few of the other risk factors. So I was just really, really surprised to find out that I consider myself pretty healthy. At least I did 3 weeks ago. That, I could get blood clots. Like, I was so embarrassed that I had them because I just didn't think that, healthy people got blood clots, and they do. And it's important for everybody to know that. But for me going forward at this point, I'm going to be on blood thinner medication for 6 months, no questions asked. For 3 weeks, I'm taking a pill in the morning and a pill in the evening, so 12 hours apart. After the 3 weeks of that is up, I go to once a day, and 6 months, no questions asked. They explained to me that at 6 months, if I don't have a blood clotting disorder, that I could get off of the blood thinners if I wanted to. And I said, I travel a lot for work, and I travel a lot personally. You see all these behind me. These are some of the photo books that I created for some of our trips. My daughter and I, we travel a lot. I have a blog, which is what this is supposed to be about, this whole channel. It's called transient2.com, or it's called Transient2. But because I have transient2.com, which is my blog, Transient2, which is my Instagram, Transient2, which is my Twitter handle, which I only really use when I publish a new article on my blog. But yeah, the travel will come at some point in time. But I travel a ton. I travel a ton for work, and I travel a ton in my personal life, and I absolutely love travel. It's my passion. I don't want to give it up. But at the same time, I don't want to be scared that I'm going to die if I travel. So I, was like, if it's up to me, if I have any say in the matter, I just want to be on the blood clotting medicine forever. And they said that's perfectly fine if that's what I wanted to do, but it may not be necessary. So if I don't have the blood clotting disorder and I do stop taking the birth control, which I have, then potentially what I could do is just take a blood thinning medicine before I got on a flight. And that's what the doctor in the hospital actually does. So he was getting ready to leave on vacation for 3 weeks, and he told me, he's like, well, I'm gonna take one. I've never had a blood clotting disorder, but since I've started doing this, I've seen how common it is and how scary it is, and I've seen so many people die from it. It's so treatable if you know about it, and it's so treatable if you go to get it treated. But not knowing and not getting treated for it is when things become problematic. So he takes the blood thinner every time he gets on a flight, which for me, if I'm able to do that, I think I would prefer to do that. I'm so covered in bruises right now. I have bruises on my legs and I didn't even get out of bed for like 5 days. Not that I didn't get out of bed, but I didn't get out much. Like there's no reason why I should have bruises on my legs. There's one on my arm right here. You see this? Yeah, that's from getting blood drawn. So you can see like where the pressure was, where they put the gauze, but then you can see like the area around it. And where I had the ecos in my stomach, oh my God, I got the biggest bruise ever. It's so purple, it's gross. Anyway, so yeah, I would like to be able to wear shorts and dresses one day, you know, so if I am able to take the blood thinners just when I'm traveling, I think that's the ideal scenario, but to be determined. Yeah, so that's kind of my story in a nutshell. And I hope that, you know, you guys find this educational. I hope that you find it informative. I hope that you find some reassurance in it. You know, like, subscribe, do all the things. But if you know, have experienced blood clots, I would love to hear your story. I'd love to see comments. If you think you might have a blood clot, like go get it checked out. It's so not worth it. If you don't have one, the worst thing they tell you is you don't, and that would be fabulous, right? So, you know, if you comment and you say, I think I might have a blood clot, what do you think? I'm gonna say, go get it checked out. If you feel like you need to ask, then you should probably go get it checked out. And don't just brush it off if you don't have all the symptoms, or if you don't have the same symptoms as me. If you just come up with like an inexplicable pain, go get it checked out. It's something that, like I said, if you get it treated, it's so treatable, but if you don't, it can be deadly. And it's crazy how many people die from blood clots. So, you know, if you see anybody like talking about things and it reminds you of what I've talked about in this video, feel free to share the video, but more importantly, tell them to go get it checked out. I'm on some running clubs, and while I was in the hospital, somebody pointed at this part in her calf and said, you know, I've got a pain right here, what could it be? And all these people were like, oh, ligaments, tendons, muscle pain, muscle strain, like all these different things that it could potentially be. Nobody said DVT. I commented and I said, you know, I had a similar pain. It was in the same spot. I brushed it off because I didn't have all the symptoms, but now I've been in the hospital for 5 days. So, you know, go get it checked out. In my case, it was DVTs, and my thread blew up. So many people after that were like, oh yeah, I've had this too. Oh yeah, I've had this too. And this is on a running page. So, you know, again, like I said, people who are active, probably fit, you know, it's common. So definitely get it checked out if you think you have it. Raise awareness. Apparently March is Blood Clot Awareness Month, so it's around the corner. Yeah, thanks guys, so happy to be here. Hopefully the next video is more fun, but this was super important and I'm glad to be able to share it with you. Thanks so much, bye.